a glorious piece of music by a permanent favorite from Burundi with Kajanine Sambolera. Thank you very much for staying with us as we acknowledge the fact that Saturday, the 11th of July, marked Africa Anti-Corruption Day, with this year's theme focusing on strengthening integrity and scaling up anti-corruption efforts across the African continent. But beyond the laws and institutions, the fight against corruption also begins with values. So how do we raise a generation that chooses integrity over corruption? And what role do parents, educators, leaders, and communities play in being able to shape that very future as we noted right now? On the line with me, Tushemerirwe, Shadia, I beg your pardon, joining me in her capacity as Program Associate for Civic Engagement and Governance for Youth African Federation, for the Youth African Federation, I beg your pardon, in Uganda. Tushe, a pleasure to have you on the program. Welcome to Channel Africa.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you so much for the time and such a critical conversation we're having around anti-corruption and acknowledging Africa Anti-Corruption Day. I think this focus is very important to share, especially when we discuss corruption. It's very easy for us to lean political and institutional, if you will, and look at it from that lens. But how much of corruption is rooted in our reflections when it comes to values and upholding individuals in society?
Thank you so much once again for having me. Good afternoon to everyone listening and watching. I believe corruption starts long before someone gets elected or appointed into a public office. It starts with everyday choices that we make. For example, if someone pays to overpass a queue in the hospital or bribes a school admission for their children, you see how it is embedded in our values. We are now believing that corruption is the way to go. Yet in actual sense, it is not. It is very wrong. It dehumanizes rules. It is very wrong. We need to preach about this. And I believe that parents can do a critical role in curbing this corruption vice right from home. And I also believe even schools at both elementary level or universities, if they can put in more work and talk about how bad corruption is, how it deprives communities their rights, actually, it would be better to fight it as society wholesomely, not leaving it for the authorities alone. Definitely they will have to come in, but if we start it as a value of community that we need to end corruption, it would really take us very far from where we are right now.
Okay, that's such a critical point around really starting small and taking it from there, starting with how you uphold, the environments in which we exist and making sure that we come up in those with integrity. But I want us to look at this generationally. Touche, looking at young people. I mean, there's increased conversations, as we noted, that are calling for young people to lead the fight against corruption. I don't know how fair that is, for those that didn't necessarily create corruption to now come up with the solutions. But what role can young people realistically play at this time in, supporting, anti-corruption efforts?
Thank you. It's a good question. Youth at large in Africa, we are no longer leaders of tomorrow. Tomorrow has come already.
Yeah.
We are leaders of today. So what can we do as youth in Africa? There has been efforts by the youth by monitoring government projects across the continent. We are using digital tools as a way of exposing the corrupt, but this is not enough. We need support. We need support. Once, for example, there was a march to parliament about corruption, I think 2022 in Uganda, for example, for a case study. And we saw the youth being, arrested, and all those funny things that come in arresting. But that was not called for. If the youth are saying, so and so, oh, this institution is corrupt, we have evidence, and they take it up to themselves and they even go on social media to expose the corrupt, can the governments of Africa back us up as the youth? Can they come to us and they ask us, where is the evidence? And they prosecute these corrupt leaders. So I believe we as the youth, we can monitor, we can report, we can whistleblow, we can upload, and we can also appreciate the leaders who have tried not to be corrupt. By appraising them, we can't be all negative and we think we are going to get support. So I believe if we, the youth, we take it as a mandate on our generation to stop this corruption from our generation, because the older generation, I won't say they have failed, they have tried, but us as the youth now of Africa, we need to do something better. If we can uphold these officers accountable in their offices, we demand for accountability of our public resources, we put them on pressure, they will deliver. Perhaps when they prosecute and sentence the corrupt ones, others will look at it and the corruption will probably reduce. I believe that's what we can do in our power right now as the youth of Africa, right now.
Right, right. So thank you. I like the way you tackled that question. And also young people cannot keep quiet. I think it's definitely our responsibility as young Africans to speak up when we recognize that situations are getting corrupt, and to take matters in our own hands in that manner. Acknowledge the fact that the 11th of July marked Africa Anti-Corruption Day, and we really are giving a special focus to the grand theme that was around strengthening integrity and scaling up anti-corruption efforts, as it were, across the African region. Tushemerirwe Shadia is joining me, and she represents the program associate, a part of Youth Africa Federation based in Uganda. Also joining the conversation after we return from break, we're going to include Alaak Andrew, who is East African Community Youth Ambassador at African Youth Federation based in South Sudan. Let's take a break and return.
Look closer. Listen deeper. This is The Journal with Mosito on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Téléchargez l'application Channel Africa sur votre Play Store ou Apple Store afin de pouvoir suivre toutes nos émissions en direct de là où vous vous trouvez. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week. The Journal with Mosito. Catch it on the Channel Africa app, SABC Plus, and on channelafrica.co.za. Weekdays from 9 till 12 p.m. Central African Time.
21 minutes into 11 a.m. in Central African Time. Thank you very much for staying with us. An opportunity for us to really look at the big themes that surround the marking of Africa Anti-Corruption Day that was acknowledged this past Saturday on the 11th of July. On the line, Tushemerirwe Shadia, who is a Program Associate for Civic Engagement and Governance at Youth African Federation based in Uganda. Alaak Andrew also joining the conversation in this segment. East African Community Youth Ambassador is what he is at Africa Youth Federation. Alaak, thank you very much for joining the conversation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think perhaps let's pick up with you. Tushemerirwe gave us a perspective as to, corruption and where we are in the conversation around corruption, values, integrity, community work, young people. But let's perhaps look at it from this lens with you on building a culture of integrity. What are your thoughts on being able to start, on that, and the importance of one entering public office in the workspace already with a built-in sense of integrity?
Actually, hello, are you getting me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Alaak, can you hear me?
Yeah, and I can hear you right now.
Okay.
Sorry for the technical issue.
Okay. Perhaps I'll ask it briefly now. Building on a culture of integrity to curb corruption. What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, if I to talk about corruption, corruption can be in three ways or in three levels. As we understand that there is a petty corruption, there is a political corruption, and there is a grand corruption. But both of them, they work under one entity. That is on a perspective whereby it is to create that what we call something which is not real and something which is biased in terms of like bribing as the way we have been seeing it in our daily practice. But if we could look at into it exactly, it has been an issue across the globe, across the continent, and into our different countries. So it has been a problem to itself, if you could say that corruption. But where is our integrity as we are those still living in the society, as you have said, and as the way my previous colleague have said earlier? So if you could look at it, is just a matter of like employing what we call integrity, because integrity does not have a boundary. It does not even tell a limit where should you practice integrity, and indeed, and that is to bring to my understanding that integration requires you to think of doing things at the right time, at the right moment, without even thinking that somebody will see you or he or she is not seeing you. So if I'm to say like that, as a leader, we should develop those four pillars of the integrity, of which they can help us to have that ethical framework, which we can try to subdue this corruption, which has been an animal affecting East Africa and Africa in general.
Absolutely. That's a good example that you make of the different tiers of corruption, and perhaps then that will raise a question as to how we deal with the different, and how we approach the frameworks that you mentioned as well. Tushemerirwe, if I can bring you back in, I mean, across Africa, it's not just in certain parts of the continent. We are seeing that people are becoming desensitized to all types of corruption. So, how do we begin to shift the mindset so that we can work within these new frameworks of how to tackle corruption?
Uh, there was a technical issue. So, is it a question direct to me or to my sister?
I don't know if she's still on the line. Tushemerirwe, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, madam. Let's look at how people across the African region have been desensitized to the everyday corruption. How do we then begin this mindset shift so that we can follow along with the frameworks as mentioned by Alaak Andrew?
All right, thank you so much. To add earlier on what the youth can actually do, sorry for taking you back a little bit, is as the youth, while we are holding other officers accountable in their offices, can we also be accountable to ourselves and to the communities we are leading? You don't point a finger to another while you're doing the opposite. So I call upon all the youth in Africa in all your capacities, whether you're in formal employment or not formal leadership, but as long as you're a leader, are you good to go when they say you're not corrupt? When they say they're corrupt, do you not appear on the list? Yeah, okay. And back to the point on the question you've asked me, I think many people have become desensitized, because corruption is now being taken as the norm, like this is okay, but it is not okay. So I feel like if as society we go back to factory settings, as someone can say, take an example on recruitment. Now the graduates, almost everybody in Africa thinks that once you do not have a connection in an organization you want to apply a job to, you're not going to get admitted. So if this is the norm, this habit is discouraging hard work and weakens trust in institutions. Changing these mindsets, it requires both education and accountability. We should celebrate honest people much as we expose the corrupt. We also need leaders who lead by example, because integrity is contagious. When citizens see public officials being held accountable regardless of their positions, the honest people being rewarded, being recognized, the confidence in fairness, it begins to grow. So I believe once we see that there is a shift in prosecuting the corrupt, there is a system that is being held. Once we stop praising people who has accumulated much wealth through dishonest ways, once we stop praising those people, I think it will come back to the young generation that it is actually wrong to be corrupt. We should work hard, acquire wealth in honest ways. This is how society is going to respect me. But nowadays, it's all about money, which is very dangerous. That's why we are seeing a lot of crime rate is going high. Too much money is being embezzled, taken away for private use instead of public use. There are no medicines in hospitals in Africa, poorer roads in Africa simply because of corruption. So if we teach our young generation right from school, right from home, you mothers who are telling fathers high prices of items that you purchase at little shops within your areas, your children are watching. Your children are watching. If you bribe your child into a certain school you want them to be when they did not have the points to actually get admitted in that school, and you bribe your way in, your child is watching. They will do exactly the same. So this fight to end corruption, it is a collective fight. Both parents, institutions, teachers, community-wise, can we join into this struggle? Can we join into the fight as a community? Because if one party is doing their job and another one is not doing their job, we are doing nothing. That's my think about how can the mind change shift from all this corruption going on in the continent. We are actually less developed because of corruption. So I believe it's a general problem across the continent. On family level, there's a country where someone told me that the head teacher is going to tell the class teacher that we need school identity cards, and they will probably be like, let me say, $20. So the head teacher tells the teacher $20. The class teacher goes and tells the students $25. And the students, they go ahead and tell their mother $30,000. And the mother is going to tell the father $35.
Right.
You see, that is a whole system.
It
So if
becomes
we
a
do not
whole.
fight it, like ruthlessly fighting it,
Can I
we are
also
going
join
to
on to support the point that she was even talking about?
Okay, yes. Just your final
Yeah.
point as we wrap up. Yes.
All right. Actually, I want to appreciate my sister for what she has said, actually, and that is the animal that we are fighting in Africa and as well in our institutions and also in our societies. That corruption, we are putting ignorant on it. And remember that it is us who are going to suffer, not those who are in power, but not those who have died. Because why am I saying like this? The service which is supposed to be meant, it is meant for the society actually. But if we can't utter our voice or put up our voice and speak on the corruption, then it will not work. Why am I saying this? I support the idea that whereby she says it is a duty call for the young people or the youth across the globe to create what we call advocacy. And I really extend by saying that it is our mandate actually to use the what we call a hub or the social media, of which to preach the negativity of the corruption toward our society. Because when I say like that, I believe that the power of communication can still speak on
Right.
itself. And again, coming to the institution whereby I was talking about the framework, I like what South Africa have done so far. There is what we call youth anti-corruption body, which is there working for the sake of the corruption, and that
Okay.
is one thing that we can use
Yeah.
regions to make sure that we can capture this corruption. Where is it, and what does it affect? How does it affect the system?
Thank you, Alaak. I think unfortunately, we've got to leave it here. But thank you for your insights. You leave us with a question, the both of you, as to whether we've got reason to be hopeful Perhaps that's a question you can answer as our audience. Do we have a reason to be hopeful that the next generation will succeed in terms of the fight against corruption at this time? We'd like to hear from you. Thank you once again to Tushemerirwe, Shadia, as well as Alaak Andrew joining us as we have the conversation on anti-corruption efforts on the African continent. 11:32, Fikile Lengwati standing by with the latest sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The